Trump wants to delay the election.
This president's going to try to steal this election.
But his actual witch doctor won't let him.
Witches and wizards are always following you.
Leaf blower dads meet a wall of moms. The Deadpool fly is all abuzz in Australia. And an old news special event. All this and more. Today, in Old News. These pictures, taken in broad daylight, bear grim witness to an erosion of the American way of life. Unmarked douchebags in street clothes, pulling people into equally unmarked soccer mom vans.
What are you doing?
I haven't done anything wrong.
Have caused the American people to ask, what the fuck is going on?
That's what you get from authoritarian dictators.
Somehow, after months of protest against terrible policing, United States law enforcement has managed to get worse. This is the motley crew of customs, border control, and prison guards that make up the Electoral College-appointed president's secret police force.
As you see right here, they beat this man up. Police don't do this. Watch this. What kind of bullshit is this?
We first saw them in D.C., where they stood around in tank tops not being very useful. In Portland, we saw what they really do.
How are we supposed to know who you are?
We have federal officers on our streets further escalating tensions.
They displayed a national show of force in front of the federal building on order of the White House. They were beating and gassing protesters, so a wall of moms showed up.
I'm a single mom, and I work full-time, and I have to come and spend my nights with you!
So the goon squad started beating and gassing the moms. Then the dads came in. Middle-aged men in orange shirts and khaki shorts arrived with leaf blowers to blow away the tear gas being blasted at the lullaby-singing moms. Now who had that on their 2020 bingo card?
They started gassing us, so we came back with respirators. And they started shooting us, so we came back with vests.
It's escalating to the point where both sides are behind heavy shields.
Who's escalating this? It's not us.
Nobody wants them there.
Adding military force only escalates.
We're not able to hold them to account, and that's highly problematic.
But now they've spread to other cities, like New York, where 4 men in casual clothes grab a young woman off the street, throw her in a van, and drive away. Nothing concerning about that. The shows of informal military force are escalating dramatic situations all around the country. Like in Louisville, Kentucky, where the all-white redneck militia showed up to confront the all-black militia called, and I shit you not, the Not Fucking Around Coalition, or NFAC, who were holding a march demanding justice for the murder of Breonna Taylor.
The biggest concern here is that everybody has a gun. Everybody is armed nearly on both sides of what is an escalating situation.
Some white guys forget that there's a lot of black folks in the military, and the few that don't get their Second Amendment rights stripped away by a racist legal system are badass. Yes, 2 independent military forces, a physical representation of the nation's growing divide, faced off in U.S. streets. I'm sure this is going to end just fine. The feds are finally pulling out of Portland after intense opposition from the local government, and a fine for the unlicensed barricade the Trump forces erected around the federal building. The word erected was used to conjure images of a dick fence. The fine is up to $48,000 a day.
We're not leaving until they've secured their city.
That's okay. We all know how good Trump is at paying his bills. Hospitals reach capacity as we cross the grim milestones of 150,000 deaths and 4.5 million infections this week. 1 Floridian dies every 8 minutes, 1 Texan every 6. The National Security Advisor tested positive as the virus continues to breach the doors of the White House. Congressman Louis Gohmert, or as they call him behind his back,
Congressman COVID,
contracted the virus after making his full staff work with him on Capitol Hill with no precautions and berated them if they wore a mask. The sad irony is the life-is-cheap congressman did all of this to show a good example of opening up correctly.
I can't help but wonder if by keeping a mask on, if I might have put some of the virus onto the mask and breathed it in.
Well, if he did wear a mask, particles did get caught on it, on the inside, which might be the only reason he didn't infect his entire staff. And finally, former presidential hopeful and famous pizza man Herman Cain lost his battle with the coronavirus, after most likely contracting it at Typhoid Trump's tainted Tulsa rally.
Local health officials had pleaded with the president to cancel the rally, where Cain appeared without a mask.
The restaurant tycoon is likely the highest profile person to fall victim to the deadly pestilence. The administration says it's now putting together a plan to deal with the virus, since they've been doing nothing before.
They did develop a cogent national plan. Then, as one participant told me, the plan just went poof into thin air.
And they told you that someone on Kushner's team said, oh, well, we don't need a national plan because at that time, right, it's blue states being hit the hardest.
Jared Kushner reportedly abandoned a national testing plan because it was politically advantageous to sit back and let the blue states get eviscerated by the virus.
The political folks believed that because it was going to be relocated to Democratic states, that they could blame those governors and that would be an effective political strategy.
Unfortunately, the virus doesn't care about your political disposition.
I mean, this is basically saying they did not care if people died in Democrat states.
A chorus of voices rightly called for Prince Jared's immediate dethronement, saying the corruption and depravity is simply staggering.
This is the reason why we can't have politicians drive this response. This needs to be driven by public health officials.
Impeached President and social media socialite Donald Trump tweeted last week that he canceled throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium, which he was never invited to do. Turns out he was just jealous of top infectious disease expert and the one guy who doesn't look like he's trying to fuck you. Never mind, Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Fauci, when you're ready, it's your pitch.
Who was aiming at a ghost, 40 feet, stage right of home plate.
Dr. Anthony Fauci!
Which allowed him to do his most famous job, make sure nobody catches anything. Causing the internet to say, don't quit your day job. No, seriously, please don't quit your day job. As you can imagine, this didn't sit well with envious president and famed abstract hair artist Donald Trump. If you didn't know, Trump is a petty, small-handed person.
He's got this high approval rating, so why don't I have a high approval rating?
Well, for starters, he has 40 years of public service. You have 3. He's honest, reached the top through hard work and merit, and was awarded the Medal of Freedom. You lie probably every time you talk, made your name on family money, and were awarded a lawsuit for paying off a porn star.
They're highly thought of, but nobody likes me.
They're highly thought of because they are experts with decades of experience dealing with pandemics. And nobody likes you because you shouldn't even be in the building. It's because you keep putting your big stupid face where it has no business being. But it sounds like you at least respect Dr. Fauci.
I have a very good relationship with Dr. Fauci.
I feel we should be staying at home.
They seem to be very responsible people to me.
Wear that mask.
I just don't want to wear one myself.
Hydroxychloroquine is not effective in coronavirus disease.
I happen to be taking it.
Hydroxychloroquine?
I'm taking it. Hydroxychloroquine.
Dr. Fauci has misled the American public on many issues, went one retweet.
I have not been misleading the American public under any circumstances.
I don't always agree with him.
What does your agreement mean? Would you take his advice on your next shitty real estate deal? Well, guess what? Science is a lot more difficult than using legacy treasure to buy shit and slap your name on it. Every word you say about the virus is useless. It's literally dead air. If you say, I think, and coronavirus in the same sentence, you are doing a disservice to the nation, because some idiots will be fooled by your confidence.
If you take a solid flu vaccine, you don't think that would have an impact or much of an impact on corona? No.
And you have no fucking clue what you're talking about.
It can only be my personality, that's all.
Yeah, that's it. It's his personality. This has begged many to ask, if he disagrees with Dr. Fauci, and obviously has other ideas, where are his ideas coming from? They must be based on a pretty reliable source to surpass the nation's most highly respected and decorated infectious disease doctor. So who does the man in control of the largest military and economic power in the world get his ironclad information from?
There was a woman who was spectacular.
Well, this sounds promising. Who is this superwoman?
You don't need mask. There is a cure. It is called hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and Zitromax.
Hydroxychloroquine. The gift that just keeps on giving. Trump and his son, Mini Trump, swam in hot water after retweeting the video.
All of those trials showed consistently that hydroxychloroquine is not effective in the treatment of coronavirus disease or COVID-19.
Mini Trump's account was suspended for spreading false information. But Twitter isn't allowed to suspend the president's account because he's the president. So his tweet just got labeled as another fucking lie. But let's dig a little deeper into this interesting character. What else does she have to say?
She's a doctor from Houston who also believes that women can be physically impregnated by witches in their dreams.
It's what we call astral sex.
She's also made videos saying that doctors make medicine using DNA from aliens.
This person is not really a demon or Nephilim. It's just a human being that's a witch.
And scientists are trying to come up with a vaccine to prevent you from being religious.
You always end up being hooked up with witches and wizards. They astral project and sleep with people.
The government is run in part not by humans, but by reptiles and other aliens.
Sex is a spiritual transaction. So when you're doing it by yourself, demons come and join you.
Yes, if you thought nothing could top injecting bleach. Now he's admitted that the real medical expert leading the nation's coronavirus response is a literal witch doctor. When asked what to do, she was quoted as recommending to ooh-ee, ooh-ah-ah, ting-tang, walla-walla bing-bang. When the impressionable oppressor was confronted about her more unorthodox beliefs, he just walked the fuck out.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Then on Thursday, just moments after learning that last quarter's jobless rate rose to 1.43 million, breaking records from the Great Depression, he did what we were all waiting for him to do.
With universal mail-in voting, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote?
Yes, with his approval rating in the toilet, his demon sperm witch doctor under fire, his own claim that nobody likes him, protests around the country, and a high-profile political figure dead because of his rally, he suggests we delay the election.
It's just the latest desperate thrashing about of a losing candidate.
His only chance of winning election is to try to prevent people from voting.
Also,
the term mail-in and absentee ballot are used interchangeably. There is no difference.
This Twitter-based suggested objective was shot down immediately by everyone.
Never in the history of the country, through wars, depressions, and the Civil War, have we ever not had a federally scheduled election on time.
But it confirmed what we already knew.
This president's going to try to steal this election.
Which brings us to our old news special event. The American people liked election a lot, but the Trump, who lived in the White House, did not. It could be he didn't like doing his job. After all, he's a paunchy and slovenly slob.
Morbidly obese, they say.
But we all know the most likely reason of all is just that his hands were 2 sizes too small. He was warned to prepare for what the Trump called Kung Flu.
I'm declaring a public health emergency over the global outbreak of novel coronavirus.
So he spent 2020 hating the WHO. They're absentee voting, he snarled with a sneer. November's election, it's practically here. They'll get healthcare and schooling and more rights for women. Then he made that dumb face like he'd sucked on a lemon. They might even get houses instead of their shacks, and more compensation for breaking their backs. They'll bang their zangwoozles and clang their fart strudels, and then they'll all rigorously play with their noodles. They'll throw their bid fiddlers and blow their kid diddlers. They'd suck their holdy flappy folds and lick their flappy foldy holds till they all get big blisters. Then he got an idea. An awful idea. The Trump got a wonderful, awful idea. I know what to do, the Trump laughed in his throat. I'll use that dumb virus to fuck up the vote. The blues vote from home so the nation can heal. But his folks vote in person because they don't think it's real.
Are you going to allow the government to tell you you have to wear a mask?
He thought of a plan, one that just wouldn't fail. I won't defund police, I'll defund the mail. And if folks try to stop me, I'll put them in jail.
What is going on? We need to know. Who are you? Where are you taking?
You're a mean one, Mr. Trump. You really are a fool. There's no plan for the pandemic. You want children back in school, Mr. Trump.
Science should not stand in the way of this.
You're an orange autocrat with a tiny white toe. You're an asshole, Mr. Trump, and such a fucking prick. You put Mexicans in cages, you think running makes you sick, Mr. Trump. Your wife wouldn't touch you if you had Christopher Hemsworth's dick. All I need is an army to keep the streets quiet. I'll find peaceful protest and call it a riot. If I can't find an army, I'll make one instead. I'll put skinheads in tank tops and call them the feds. I must have a rally. I don't care what they say. I must have one at once. And he went on his way. He held unsafe rallies with his new dire warning, mail-in voting is bad, and there's no global warming. Here's what to do if you want us to grow. The post office, said Trump, is the first thing to go. The Trump said to trust me. He's appointed by God.
When you do mail-in voting,
said the Trump,
you're asking for fraud.
He threw doubt on safe distance. He threw doubt upon masks.
They want to throw God's wonderful breathing system out the door.
He got all the Trump trumpets to do all the Trump asks. He points to reporters.
Look at all those press back.
And the place fills with boos. They don't like mail-in voting, and they hate the fake news. You're a douchebag, Mr. Trump. Your haircut is bizarre. You've got all the arrogance of a bipolar hip-hop star, Mr. Trump. Given the choice between the two of you, I'd take the bipolar hip-hop star. He moved on to Phoenix to further his plans while his goons grabbed protesters and threw them in vans.
How are we supposed to know you're not kidnapping us?
He told them the post office is just a scam. It's hemorrhaging money. Why, the whole thing's a sham. Let's make the mail private, he said with a boast, and we became the one country without national post. You're a rotten, Mr. Trump. You're the king of stupid thoughts.
I'm like a person that has a good,
Your
you-know-what.
heart's a masturbation splotch where hookers piss on cots, Mr. Trump.
You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab him by the pussy.
Your soul is a freakish eyes wide shut party, bulging with the most depraved and covetous assortment of unpleasant, underage sex traffickers imaginable, bungled up in Fumble Trump plots. While he told everybody that his plan wouldn't fail, by the end of September, they stopped getting their mail. Before very long, his last rally was over. Everyone was confused, and nobody was sober. Then he grabbed his ball whistle and his Dusseldorf too, and here's where Dr. Seuss gave up halfway through. He flipped on Fox News with his tiny doll hands and sat back to watch the results of his plans. But this sight wasn't sad. These people were glad. Every blue down in Blueville, the large and the stout, said they'd all risk their lives to vote his ass out. He puzzled and cussed, called Pelosi a whore, then he drank with two hands and puzzled some more. Then the Trump thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe swindling the country takes a little bit more. He said the vote was a fraud, and his flock all agreed. So he stayed in the White House and had the front door rekeyed. He hid in the bunker and blocked all the doors, but his own hired goons removed him by force.
We need to know, who are you? Why are you
The world was relieved that the Trump hadn't won, but he'd broken the country. The damage was done. But they tried Trump for treason. They tore down his wall. Turns out he's not above the law, after all. The whole world knew that they'd put him away, but his whole butthole grew 3 sizes that day.
And in other news, the Deadpool fly is making a buzz as part of a superhero-themed batch of newly discovered life forms in Australia. 165 new species, including insects, plants, birds, fish, and a mite, have been named in the past year, some of which vaguely resemble a number of iconic comic book characters, including Thor, Loki, and Black Widow. And Stan Lee had his usual cameo in the form of a weird-looking Australian mustache fly. Avengers, please don't assemble. My apartment is already lousy with bugs. Florida Man is back in the news. This time it's Florida Congressman Ted Yoho. Yoho, it's like YOLO. You only live once. Only with him, it's you only hit once. Then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez kicks the holy shit out of you.
In front of reporters, Representative Yoho called me, and I quote, a fucking bitch. A congresswoman. I have tossed men out of bars that have used language like Mr. Yoho's. I am 2 years younger than Mr. Yoho's youngest daughter. I do not need Representative Yoho to apologize. Clearly, he does not want to. I am here because I have to show my parents that I am their daughter and that they did not raise me to accept abuse from men.
That lady is my spirit animal. And finally, a lady was killed in the first lethal shark attack in the history of Maine. And you know what that means.
It's time for Shark Party.
Julie D'Imperio Holowak of New York City was on vacation in the lobster state when she went for a dip and met the 300-watt smile of a great white shark. She will be missed, but that's one more reminder that Mother Nature bites. Old News will be taking a week off to get our shit together. We'll be back on August 15th if the country is still standing. And as you know, television goes off the air this time every night. Join us again tomorrow morning for Howdy Doody.
They're perfect killing machines. They mostly eat seals.